Be me, enlightened, aware, and frankly, exhausted. My entire existence is a performance of emotional labor for a world that refuses to acknowledge it. Every smile, every nod, every "how are you" is a tax levied by the patriarchy. I read another article about the mental load, the invisible work that women do, and a fire ignites in my soul. A righteous, brilliant fire. The author, a fellow warrior of the keyboard, detailed how men float through life unburdened. They do not remember birthdays, they do not schedule appointments, they do not notice when the toilet paper is low. They exist in a state of blissful, privileged ignorance, their path smoothed by the unseen efforts of women. And I think, what if I just stopped? What if, for 1 month, I lived as a man? Not in the literal sense, of course. That would be appropriating a struggle I do not face. But in the societal sense, I would shed the shackles of expectation. I would adopt the sacred male tenets, transactional interactions, emotional unavailability, and a complete and utter refusal to perform unpaid domestic or emotional labor beyond the absolute bare minimum. This would be my magnum opus, a piece of performance art so profound it would shake the very foundations of the cis heteronormative patriarchy. I would document it all for my blog, The Speared Vagina, a title that I felt was both provocative and deeply intellectual. The experiment begins on a Monday, the most masculine of days, all business and brute force. My first rule: cease all proactive communication. I will not be the one to text first. I will not be the one to make plans. I will not be the one to ask, "How was your day?" I will wait to be engaged, and when I am, my responses will be brief, monosyllabic if possible. I envision myself as a rugged, stoic oak tree in a world of chattering, needy squirrels. I get ready for work. Usually, this involves a complex routine of skincare, makeup, and hairstyling, all designed to make me presentable for the male gaze. Today, I will live like a man. I wash my face with bar soap, run a comb through my hair, and put on the first clean clothes I find. It's a wrinkled blouse and a pair of trousers that don't quite match. I feel a surge of defiant power. This is freedom. This is what it feels like to not care about being aesthetically pleasing to men. I walk to the bus stop. Normally, I offer a polite, small smile to people I make eye contact with. It's a subconscious act of de-escalation, a signal that I am not a threat. Today, I stare ahead, my face a mask of masculine indifference. A man nods at me, a silent greeting. I stare through him, my gaze fixed on the horizon. He looks away, confused. I smirk internally. He was probably expecting me to smile and validate his existence. Denied, patriarchy, denied. At the office, the experiment continues. My co-worker, Brenda in accounting, has a new plant on her desk. Usually, I would be socially obligated to comment on it, to ask its name, to perform the ritual of feigned interest. Today, I am a man. I walk past her desk without a word, my focus solely on the masculine pursuit of reaching my cubicle. I can feel her eyes on my back, a silent plea for the emotional labor I am now withholding. The day is filled with these small victories. I don't offer to make the coffee. I don't ask my male boss about his weekend golf game. I don't tidy up the communal kitchen after someone leaves a spill. I eat my lunch at my desk, staring at my monitor with intense, masculine focus, even though I'm just reading my own blog posts. Each moment of non-participation feels like a triumph. I am a ghost in the social machine, a wrench in the gears of patriarchal expectation. I get home and survey my apartment. The trash is full. My instinct, honed by years of conditioning, is to take it out. But what would a man do? A man would push the trash down with his foot to make more room, so that is what I do. I stomp on the coffee grounds and take out containers with a sense of primal, masculine satisfaction. The bag groans, but holds. Problem solved, the man way. The next day, I notice a shelf in my living room is sagging. It's been sagging for weeks, a silent entry on my mental to-do list. My conditioned female response would be to research solutions, measure the space, go to the hardware store, and spend a Saturday carefully installing a new, better shelf. My new masculine persona has a different approach. Brute force and minimal effort. I find a hammer in the back of a closet. I hit the sagging part of the shelf upwards. A chunk of plaster falls out of the wall, and the shelf sags even more. I hit it again, harder. The bracket rips out of the drywall completely. Books, a vase, and a framed photo of my college intersectional feminist book club tumble to the floor. The vase shatters. I stare at the wreckage. A true man would not be flustered by this. He would see it not as a failure, but as an inconvenience to be ignored. I nudge the broken pieces under the couch with my foot. I will deal with it later. Or not at all. That feels even more masculine. The week progresses in this manner. My apartment grows dirtier. A pile of dishes colonizes the sink, developing its own ecosystem. The trash I stomped down is now overflowing. a monument to my defiance. I run out of clean underwear and am forced to wear a swimsuit bottom to work. This, I reason, is the authentic male experience. This is the price of freedom from the tyranny of domestic standards. My social life, or what's left of it, evaporates. My friends text me, their messages full of concern and question marks. Are you okay? Haven't heard from you in a week. I respond with a single, masculine, yep. Sometimes I wait a full day to respond, to simulate the masculine trait of being busy with important man things. They stop texting. This is fine. Emotional entanglements are a feminine construct designed to trap and drain. I am an island, a fortress of stoicism. The second week is harder. The novelty is worn off, replaced by a grim reality. The smell in my apartment is becoming a problem. The pile of dishes has started to attract flies. The broken shelf is a constant mocking reminder of my failed attempt at masculine handiwork. I realize that living like a man doesn't magically make problems disappear. It just means living in squalor until a woman comes and cleans it up. But there is no woman. There is only me, the performance artist, trapped in her own masterpiece. My work performance suffers. My refusal to engage in office housework, taking notes, organizing meetings, mentoring the intern, has been noticed. My boss, Mark, calls me into his office. He looks concerned. He probably thinks I'm having personal problems. He doesn't understand that I'm engaged in a radical act of feminist protest. He mansplains the importance of teamwork and being a proactive member of the department. I stare at a point just over his shoulder, my face an impassive mask. I give a single, masculine nod. Understood, I say, my voice flat. I am channeling every emotionally constipated action hero I have ever been forced to watch. He looks baffled by my lack of an emotional response. He was expecting tears, excuses, a feminine collapse. I have given him nothing. Another victory. I feel hollow. I go to the grocery store. I need food, a basic masculine requirement. I walk through the aisles, my focus purely on acquisition. I see a woman struggling to get a box from a high shelf. She makes eye contact with me, a silent appeal for help. The old me, the conditioned me, would have rushed to her aid. The new me, the man me, remembers my purpose. I am not here to solve the problems of others. I look away and continue down the aisle. I can feel her disappointed gaze on my back. I tell myself this is what equality feels like. It feels awful. I buy a frozen pizza and a six-pack of beer, the stereotypical meal of the single man. I go home and eat the entire pizza while standing over the sink, staring at the growing mountain of dirty dishes. I drink 4 of the beers. I don't even like beer, but it feels like something a man would do. I feel bloated and sad. I look at myself in the reflection of the dark kitchen window. My hair is greasy, my skin is breaking out from the bar soap and poor diet, and I have a small ketchup stain on my wrinkled blouse. I look unkempt. I look like the men I've spent my entire life critiquing. Is this the price of power? The third week begins with a plumbing issue. The kitchen sink, clogged with a fortnight of food debris, refuses to drain. It sits there, a stagnant pond of brown water and floating pasta remnants. My first thought, the feminine one, is to call the landlord. My second thought, the masculine one, is that calling for help is a sign of weakness. A man would fix this himself. He would own tools. I do not own tools, besides the hammer that betrayed me. I decide to improvise. I find a wire coat hanger and straighten it out. I jam it down the drain, wiggling it with what I imagine is masculine vigor. I am a pioneer, a hunter-gatherer, a master of my domain. I feel something give. A gurgling sound emanates from the depths of the pipes. Success! I pull the hanger out. It's covered in a foul, black sludge that smells like death and decay. But the water is draining. I have conquered the plumbing. I am a god. I spend the evening watching a documentary about grizzly bears, a suitably masculine topic. I fall asleep on the couch, surrounded by empty beer cans and the pizza box. I am awakened in the middle of the night by a sound. Drip, drip, drip. I ignore it. Men are good at ignoring things. The dripping gets louder. It's joined by a faint creaking sound from the ceiling. I turn on the light. A dark, ominous spot has appeared on the ceiling above my couch. As I watch, a drop of water detaches itself and falls onto the floor. My brilliant repair of the sink drain must have dislodged a pipe in the wall. The apartment above me, my apartment, is leaking. No, not my apartment. The apartment below me. The apartment of the man who lives downstairs. I barely know him. He's one of those quiet, solitary types. I see him sometimes, working on his motorcycle or carrying in groceries. He never smiles or says hello. He just exists in his own self-contained world. I've already decided he's a prime example of toxic masculinity, emotionally stunted, and probably a secret reader of misogynistic forums. Now, my feminist experiment is leaking into his patriarchal man cave. The irony is not lost on me, but I'm too panicked to appreciate it. What would a man do in this situation? My brain cycles through the options. Option A. Ignore it. Pretend it's not happening. This is the classic male avoidance strategy, but the ceiling is looking increasingly pregnant with water. This seems unsustainable. Option B. A panicked, poorly executed DIY fix. This would involve the hammer again, and I've learned my lesson. Option C. Blame someone else. This is a high-level masculine maneuver. I could blame the landlord, the building's cheap construction, global warming. The spot on the ceiling is now the size of a dinner plate. A steady trickle of water is falling onto my floor. I have to do something. My phone, my lifeline to the outside world, feels impossibly heavy. Calling the landlord is admitting defeat. It's admitting that I, a woman attempting to live like a man, cannot handle my own problems. My performance art will be ruined. But the alternative is a collapsed ceiling and a flood. I look at the water pooling on my hardwood floor. It's seeping into the cracks. I think of the man downstairs, his silent, judgmental existence. I imagine his reaction when water starts pouring into his apartment. He won't be understanding. He'll be angry, masculine rage personified. I am filled with dread. The fourth week is the week of the flood. I spent 2 days ignoring the leak, hoping it would magically fix itself. I put a bucket under it, a masculine solution if ever there was one. The bucket filled up every few hours. Emptying it was a grim, repetitive task. The ceiling sagged more each day, the plaster cracking around the dark, wet stain. My apartment smelled like a swamp. The stench of the garbage and the dishes was now joined by the damp, musty odor of the leak. I was living in a monument to my own failed experiment. I stopped going to work. I called in sick, using a deep, gravelly voice I thought sounded more masculine. I couldn't face the world. I couldn't face my own reflection. My blog lay dormant. What could I write? Day 24 of living like a man. I have created a biohazard and am slowly being driven insane by the sound of dripping water. The patriarchy is wet. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was awakened by a loud crash. A huge chunk of the ceiling had given way, dumping a deluge of filthy water and soggy plaster onto my floor. The bucket was overturned, the water spreading rapidly across the room. This was no longer a drip. This was a waterfall of my own making. Panic, cold and sharp, finally pierced through my stoic facade. This was beyond my control. This was a disaster. I had to get help. My first thought was the landlord, but it was 2 a.m. My second thought, born of pure desperation, was the man downstairs, the toxic, silent man. He was a man after all, and in a crisis, aren't men supposed to do something? Aren't they supposed to step up, to be strong, to fix things? This is the other side of the patriarchal coin, isn't it? With great privilege comes great responsibility. His entire life of unearned advantage had been leading to this moment, the moment where he could be useful to a woman in distress. It was his societal duty. I stumbled through the dark, my feet splashing in the cold water. I ran down the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I banged on his door, my fists hitting the wood with frantic energy. I didn't care about the experiment anymore. I just wanted someone to make it stop. The door opened a few inches. He stood there, silhouetted by the light from his apartment. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. He looked tired, but calm. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, his eyes taking in my disheveled appearance, my wet socks, my panicked expression. My ceiling, I gasped, pointing upwards. It collapsed. There's water everywhere. It's coming from my apartment. I waited for him to spring into action. I waited for the surge of masculine competence, the stand back little lady, I'll handle this energy that I had spent my life despising but desperately needed right now. He looked at me for a long moment. His expression didn't change. It was not angry or concerned or even surprised. It was just neutral. He glanced up at his own ceiling, presumably listening for the sound of impending doom. Then he looked back at me. He reached into his apartment, and for a second I thought he was getting tools, or a jacket, ready to charge into battle. He came back with a small, white business card. He held it out to me. I took it numbly. It read, 24-hour emergency plumbing and restoration services. He then gave me a slow, deliberate look. It was a look that communicated everything without a single word. It said, this is your problem. It said, you are a stranger who has just woken me up at 2 a.m. It said, I am not your father, your husband, or your hero. It said, go your own way. And then he quietly, gently closed the door in my face. I stood there, in the hallway, dripping water onto the carpet, the business card clutched in my hand. I was stunned. I was speechless. He had refused. He had refused to perform the most basic, fundamental duty of a man, to rescue a damsel in distress. He hadn't yelled, he hadn't lectured, he hadn't mansplained. He had simply opted out. He had assessed the situation, determined it was not his responsibility, and gone back to his life. It was the most brutally, efficiently masculine thing I had ever witnessed, and it was directed at me. I, who had spent a month trying to live by the masculine code of self-interest, had been completely outmaneuvered by a true master of the art. I had expected him to play his assigned role in my drama. He had refused the script. I went back up to my ruined apartment. The water was still pouring from the ceiling. The room was destroyed. I sat on the edge of my bed, the one dry piece of furniture, and I called the number on the card. A man with a sleepy voice answered. I told him my story. He sighed and said he could have a team there in an hour, but it would cost a fortune. I agreed to everything. I had no choice. As I sat there, waiting for the plumbers, the full weight of my experiment crashed down on me. I had tried to live like a man, by my definition. I had defined it as a life of selfishness, of ignoring problems, of refusing to contribute, of expecting others to clean up your mess. And for a month, I had created a monumental mess. But when the consequences became too severe, my first instinct was to run to a man, expecting him to fix it all for me. I had embraced what I saw as the privileges of masculinity, but when the bill came due, I tried to hand it to the nearest man, demanding he pay it according to the rules of a patriarchy I claimed to be fighting. The man downstairs hadn't outsmarted me with words. He had outsmarted me with a boundary, a simple, solid, unbreachable wall of no. He was living like a man too, not my caricature of one, but a real one. A man who had decided his peace, his time, and his property were his own, and not a public utility for his neighbours. A man who was going his own way. The plumbers arrived, an army of actual competent men with tools and a plan. They were loud and efficient. They tore out the rest of the ceiling, shut off the water, and set up huge, roaring fans to dry the place out. The bill was astronomical. My security deposit was a distant memory. I would be paying this off for years. My experiment was over. I had tried to live like a man for a month, and I had regretted every second, but not for the reasons I thought I would. I didn't regret the dirt, or the loneliness, or the bad food. I regretted that I had failed so spectacularly. I regretted that my grand statement against the patriarchy had ended with me, a crying woman in a flooded apartment, saved by a team of working-class men I had to pay for with a credit card. And most of all, I regretted the man downstairs. I had wanted to prove that men had it easy. He had proven that I had no idea what it meant to be one. He had shown me that true independence wasn't about making a mess and expecting someone else to clean it up. It was about closing the door on the mess and letting the person who made it deal with it themselves. My blog post would be incredible though, a scathing indictment of the new MGTOW masculinity, men who refuse their societal obligations and leave women to drown. I would be a victim, a survivor, a voice for the abandoned. The narrative was already writing itself in my head. It was a much better story than the truth.